My name is Reverend Donna Maurer from the Sonoran Desert Center for Spiritual Living here in Amado, Arizona. I'm with our music director today, Heather O'Day, and our practitioner, Louise Riley. We welcome you to our virtual service and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. My name is Heather O'Day, and I am the music director at the Sonoran Desert Center for Spiritual Living. Let's start this service by ringing some bells to center and enjoy this celebration today. Now I'd like to invite Louise Riley, our practitioner, to give the invocation.
I know that God is all there is, that there is an energetic force that indwells all creation in every cell, in everything. We are each an individual aspect of this all-encompassing energy. Its life force can never be depleted or deleted. It can only be denied. I affirm the oneness and goodness of life, no matter how it shows up. My confident affirmation co-creates a frequency within my consciousness that vibrates into the world. It has the power to shake up any unhealthy residue, conscious or subconscious, that is unlike the supreme truth that these words proclaim. And I know this is true for each and every one of us here in our community and globally. And so it is.
Thank you, Louise. I need to be still and let God love me. I need to be still and let God love me. When this whole world seems to push and shove me, I need to be still and let God love me. I need to let go and let God take over. I need to let go and let God take over and take these burdens off my shoulders. I need to let go and let God take over. And with that song, I'd like to invite Reverend Donna Maurer to give her message for this week.
When I was a little girl, around 3 years old, I shared a bedroom with my baby sister. Her crib was across from my bed, and we kept her baby buggy underneath it. When there was a moon, the light would hit the metal hubs of the buggy wheels. And in my little mind, I made eyes out of those lights. Those eyes belonged to a big, mean black bear named Bright Eyes. He watched me, ready to pounce at any moment. I would be so frightened that I would shake, and I would watch those eyes to be sure they didn't move until I fell asleep from sheer exhaustion. And in the morning, when I could make out shapes, mean old Bright Eyes had turned back into a baby carriage with big wheels. When I began to study the work of Joseph Campbell on mythology, I was captivated by the interpretation of the hero's journey. In epic mythology, while the stories change, the universal truth underlying the story is the truth of every age, of every culture, and it's our own hero's journey. And one of the most powerful pieces of this journey is the dark night of the soul. It is a time when, by all appearances, there is no hope, there is no way out. And yet, through that dark night, we surrender to a mystical process. Our despair begins to dissipate, and we emerge transformed. Since this is Holy Week for the Christian world, I want to look at this dark night from the perspective of Bishop John Shelby Spong. His book, Resurrection, lets us glimpse this element of the hero's journey through the experience of Peter, Jesus' closest disciple. So for Bishop Spong, the crucifixion was not Jesus' dark night. He had already experienced that when he went to the desert and wrestled with the devil. He struggled with all of the desires of the ego and potential material power that could be his. And he did not begin his ministry until he was convinced within himself that indeed it was the Father's business that he was about, and it was the Father within that would do the work. This dark night, then, was the combined experience of Jesus' disciples and his followers. Jesus had given them plenty of warning. There are several statements in Scripture where he tells his followers not only that he will be killed, but how. And they chose to ignore those warnings. So the arrest and crucifixion of Jesus came as a complete surprise to them. Almost all scholars agree that Jesus was crucified, which is the most shameful way to die. Scripture tells us that the disciples scattered at his arrest, and many were returning home. Shocked, devastated, and grief-stricken, they made their way back to pick up the pieces of the lives they had left behind and try to make sense of what has happened to their chosen Messiah. And Peter is one of those disciples. His life had revolved around the life of Jesus. He heard the teachings. He had seen the impact that Jesus had on the people he encountered. Jesus had taught Peter to pray, and Peter had been privileged to live inside Jesus' relationship with God. Peter's opinions and inherent belief systems were called to task by Jesus. Political and social barriers that framed not only Peter's life, but society at large, were flung away by the inclusivity of Jesus. Prejudices against Samaritans, Gentiles, women, and even children were torn from their roots. Bishop Spong says, Peter had seen in Jesus a rare personal integrity that was displayed in the courage to be himself in all circumstances. When the masses came to hear Jesus and extolled his greatness, Jesus was not affected. When those who opposed him waged hostile advances, he did not run in fear, nor was he embittered by rage. As one who deeply loved Jesus, Peter experienced all of this, and now the hopes and dreams he had placed in his beloved Jesus were dashed. Now he is back home, returning to his life as a fisherman, with a sense of loss and confusion that is devastating. Here his heart overflows with grief and sorrow, doubt, and questions that have no answers. And I'm sure he asks the question, as we all do when experiences take us to the depth of darkness, how could God do this? And I can imagine that the uppermost question in Peter's mind, as it would be for each one of us, is, where do I go from here? So with this picture of Jesus, let's turn to the Gospel of John. Then Jesus drew near and took bread and fish and gave to them. This is the third time that Jesus appeared to his disciples after he rose from the dead. After they had eaten, Jesus asked Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, do you love me? And Peter answers, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus says to him, "Feed my lambs." Again, the second time, Jesus says, "Simon, son of Jonas, do you love me?" And again, Peter replies, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus says, "Feed my sheep." And Jesus, for the third time, says, "Simon, son of Joseph, do you love me?" And Peter was grieved because of being asked again and said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." A dark night of the soul brings us to the deepest fathoms of despair. But then we begin to surrender to something within ourselves and the blackness starts to dissipate. And when we emerge, we have a spiritual revelation that brings into focus a true reality, not bound by time or words. When Peter's agony and despair is surrendered, he experiences a call to his greatness, not by the man Jesus physically risen from the dead, but by a love that is resurrected within his heart and soul. It was as if the scales fell from his eyes and he saw a realm that is around us every moment, a realm of life and love, a realm of God from within which Jesus could appear. And from that transcendent moment, Peter heard the words of his beloved, "If you love me, feed my sheep," as the ultimate call to his life work. So if John Shelby Spong is anywhere near right in his assessment of the story, then must we throw away the pageantry of Holy Week, of Easter resurrection? And no, we don't. Rather, we understand them in terms of epic mythology, more powerful than a physically resurrected body, angels sitting at the foot of a stone, or empty tombs. These are the legends, the words, to describe a wordless event, and we need them. We need them to bring us back to that morning when Peter got it, the grand aha of his life, and to know that this experience is our own every time we turn our will and our life over to the care of the God we understand. So we need them as signposts that place ourselves within that wordless mystery that is God at the core of our being and at the core of life itself. And we can see through the pageantry of the Easter story that we too are a part of the hero's journey experience. We have been given the great example of how to live our lives, how to love each other, how to stand in awe at the mystery of eternity. We, you and I, are the living chapters in a continuing story, an epic mythology that has no beginning and no end, a story that embraces us all, for it is the story of spirituality evolving. Today, the world is facing its darkest night as COVID-19 runs rampant through every city, state, nation. Some of us will not survive. To me, there appears a spiritual dichotomy as the announcement from health officials that this will be the deadliest week of the virus is our Holy Week, our week most tied to our faith. So I come back to my story of Bright Eyes. The pandemic crisis we are facing is not a story made up in the mind of a child. But perhaps the ingenuity with which this child overcame her fears can be a lesson for all of us. Continually frightened by what I would conjure up at night, I finally found my way out. I came to believe that outside my window was a big brown bear, much bigger than Bright Eyes. I couldn't see him, but something in me told me that he loved me and would watch over me all night long, ready to spring into action if Bright Eyes moved a muscle. When my faith in Brown Bear became stronger than my fear of Bright Eyes, I slept soundly through the night. With a child's trust, I turned my life over to the care of something greater than me and greater than my fear. When our faith becomes stronger than our fear, when we turn our life over to that something greater, our dark night is the catalyst for our own transformation. And like the child with the brown bear outside her window, you and I can sleep safely through the night. Thank you. Namaste.
No, I was listening this week to other New Thought Centers, and I believe it was Reverend Kathy Ann who had explained that for her, Easter happens every single day. Every time there's a challenge, every time there is a proverbial stone to roll away in her life, she turns to Spirit. And this is a song that I think absolutely symbolizes what is going on in our world right now and how together we will rise above it. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out. Ooh, mountains, yeah, we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet, feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. Take the world to its feet, move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up, I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, yeah, all for you. All we need is hope, and with that we have each other, yes we do, and with that we have each other. Rise, and we'll rise, oh we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day, I'll rise up, in spite of the ache, I'll rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up, high like the waves, we'll rise up, in spite of the ache, we'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you, for you, for you. Yeah, we're gonna rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Thank you, Heather. As we maneuver through the challenges that are before us, we ask that you consider a donation to our center so that we can continue to bring our messages to you. It's easy to donate from our website. Just go to www.cslaz.org and click on the donate button. All you need is a credit card. And we thank you in advance for your consideration. And now here is Louise with our closing prayer.
So thank you, Donna, for your inspirational words, and thank you, Heather, for your beautiful music. So I am grateful for this time together today and for each and every one of you in our spiritual family. I am grateful that we come together in prayer, love, and hope, and share in the wonder of today, share in the wisdom of Donna's words, and share our hope for the world and our knowingness that we are truly all part of the oneness of God. We each take our healing consciousness out into the world, uniting with those all over the globe in prayer, knowing that a better place is truly coming. So let us celebrate in gratitude right here and right now, releasing everything into the law from which something new and wonderful is made manifest. Namaste.